Have you ever watched the credits rolling after a film and noticed a glaring omission? Did you wonder if it was some simple data entry oversight? That somebody just forgot to add an actor's name among their co-stars? The reality is, there is always a story behind the choice not to feature an actor's name in the credits. And you know what? Here are 10 of them. Because I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 10 actors who went uncredited for major film roles and why. Number 10, James Earl Jones, Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. So we're going to kick off this list with one a lot of you Star Wars buffs out there may already know. The vocal performance that launched Darth Vader to be one of the most iconic movie characters of all time actually went uncredited for 2 whole films. For the original Star Wars, James Earl Jones asked not to be credited. Part of Jones' decision was because he considered David Prowse's performance inside the Vader costume to be the more defining of the two. Prowse, after all, had to wear that darn thing, and he spoke all of Vader's lines from inside the helmet. Prowse was told by writer-director George Lucas that all of his dialogue would be re-recorded in post-production, but what Prowse didn't know was that Lucas planned to overdub his vocal performance with an actor who had a deeper, more menacing voice. In keeping with Jones' decision to be uncredited for playing the voice of Darth Vader, the second installment, The Empire Strikes Back, did not have the actor's name in the credits either. By the time of the final film in the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi, Jones changed his mind, citing that by that point, everybody already knew that it was him performing the voice of Vader, so he may as well put his name at the end. Then, in 1997, when Lucasfilm re-released the trilogy in special edition form, the actor's name was retroactively added to A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. Number 9, David Hyde Pierce, Hellboy. During filming of Guillermo del Toro's 2004 comic book adaptation Hellboy, actor, mime and contortionist Doug Jones portrayed the role of the genius-level intellectual, psychic and amphibious Abe Sapien. David Hyde Pierce was known for his role as neurotic, well-cultured psychiatrist on television's Frasier, and was hired to give Abe Sapien a voice that audiences would probably recognize. But, according to IMDb, in a move echoing back to James Earl Jones before him, Pierce refused a credit because he felt that Abe was entirely Doug's creation, and did not want to detract from his performance. What a nice guy. Then for the sequel, 2008's Hellboy 2 The Golden Army, the voice acting gig was actually given back to Doug Jones. Jones would then go on to play a similar amphibious role in Del Toro's 2017 Best Picture winner The Shape of Water. Yeah, just think, that could have been Merman Niles Crane making out with Sally Hawkins instead. Number 8, Rob Lowe, Tommy Boy. After playing heartthrobs all the way through the 1980s, actor Rob Lowe's career took a decidedly different turn when he started showing up in mainstream comedies, such as Wayne's World, Tommy Boy, and Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me, every time playing a villainous, albeit hunky twerp. What you may not know, though, is that his role in Tommy Boy as the con artist stepbrother to Chris Farley's titular character went completely uncredited. The reasons for this came down to scheduling conflicts. Lowe was originally supposed to play the role that eventually went to David Spade. Yep, that's right. After Lowe's appearance in Wayne's World, the actor was ready to step into more comedic roles, and was cast in Tommy Boy to play the uptight straight man against Chris Farley's bumbling manchild. However, Lowe had a previous obligation to star in a TV miniseries based on Stephen King's The Stand, and because of the overlapping shooting schedules, he could no longer make the time commitment to play the second lead in Tommy Boy. Lowe's contract for The Stand even went so far as to say that he could not have another starring role in a film or TV show at the same time, as it might detract from the big budget miniseries. His role was therefore recast with Spade. As a favour to Chris Farley then, with whom Lowe had become good friends, he stayed in the film by taking on the much smaller role of the stepbrother, and took his name off the movie in a sneaky way of getting around that stipulation in his contract for the miniseries. Without Lowe doing this solid to his mate Farley, who knows? Tommy Boy may not have been the memorable comedy it is today. Number 7, Kenneth Branagh, Swing Kids. This next entry is one where the reasons seem pretty suspect if you ask me. 1993's Disney film Swing Kids was about a group of young men in Nazi Germany who rebelled against a ban on big band music. Although it was released to mixed reviews, it has since become somewhat of a cult classic. And it also helped launch the career of future Batman himself, Christian Bale. So that's something. In the film, Kenneth Branagh plays the head of the local SS, who tries to recruit one of the swing kids, played by Robert Sean Leonard, to enlist with the Gestapo. Branagh is the main heavy in the film, but his name was actually pulled from the credits before the movie premiered. The Los Angeles Times ran a story about it a week before the Disney film opened back in 1993, and in this article, Branagh's assistant and agent are quoted as stating that the established Shakespearean actor and filmmaker gave up his top billing so that his name wouldn't take the spotlight away from the film's two younger male leads, Bale and Leonard. How kind. Was that really the case though? Or did Branagh actually simply not care for the film and just didn't want his name associated with it? That seems the much likelier story, no? But I'll just let you decide. Number 6, Henry Winkler, Scream. The great Henry Winkler will go down as one of the most recognisable characters in TV history. Arthur Fonzarelli, aka the Fonz on the classic 1970s sitcom Happy Days. And that actually had a lot to do with why his name was left off the credits of the 1996 horror film Scream. One of the most memorable parts of the horror spoof is good old Fonzie showing up as a creepy high school principal, to only then be brutally murdered by one of his own students midway through the film. Shocking stuff. Winkler's appearance was one of many elements of the film's pop culture commentary, and it was also one of the surprises that made it so darn fun. The final credits of the film shows clips of each of the cast members, but the film's producers decided to not include Winkler because they felt the lovable image of the aged Fonz might be too jarring, and could bring theatregoers down from the adrenaline rush built up by the film's climax. Winkler concurred with the producer's aesthetic choice and went without credit. It makes a bit of sense, doesn't it? Just imagine right after the bloodbath at the end of Scream, all of a sudden seeing a picture of Henry Winkler and being reminded that, yeah, that's right, the frickin' Fonz was in this movie, would have definitely undone some of the frightful tingles in the spine, wouldn't it? Thanks for checking out this video today, my friend, and if you're enjoying what you're watching, then hit that subscribe button down below for more of this what culture stuff in your day. Number 5, Don Cheadle, Ocean's 11. 2001's heist comedy Ocean's 11 boasted a dream cast, with the likes of Julia Roberts, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and Matt Damon. The film's title refers to the number of crooks Clooney's Danny Ocean assembles to pull off a casino robbery, but if you're counting the number of robbers in the film, and then count the number of them listed in the credits, you will actually only come up with 10. But that's because actor Don Cheadle, probably best known now for playing James War Machine Rhodes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, asked that his name be removed from the film. Cheadle, who employed a Cockney accent for his role as a demolitions expert, actually had a pretty reasonable argument for this too. You see, he was coming hot off the success of the Best Picture nominated Tropic, in which he had a major role and which Ocean's 11 director Steven Soderbergh had also helmed. So in 2001, Cheadle felt he was owed the coveted name above the title credit, especially since Brad Pitt and Matt Damon, whose names did go above the title, had not even worked with Soderbergh before. When the production company and Cheadle's representation could not reach a deal though, he simply said, "Take my name off it then." Now, Cheadle did of course come back for the next 2 films in the franchise, those times reaching a deal to get his name well above the titles. He got there in the end. Number 4, Gary Oldman, Hannibal. Now say what you will about 2001's Silence of the Lambs gore-fest sequel, Hannibal, but perhaps the most memorable character in that entire debacle was Gary Oldman's turn as Mason Verger, a former patient of Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter, and the only one of his victims to live to tell the tale. Apart from Hopkins and Julianne Moore, who replaced Jodie Foster as FBI agent Clarice Starling, Oldman's character was the 3rd biggest focus of the film, serving as a second antagonist. Verger spent the film using his inherited fortune to track down Lecter, so he could have the honours of killing Hannibal the Cannibal himself, with the poetic justice styling of feeding him to a stable full of wild boars. An established leading man at the time, Oldman lobbied to get his name above the film's title along with its other 2 stars. The producers had differing opinions though. The long-awaited sequel to the smash hit Silence of the Lambs, 2001's Hannibal promised to be a showdown between Lecter and Starling, so putting a 3rd actor's name above the title could have spelled confusion for excited audiences. When producers shot down his request to have his name above the title then, Oldman ultimately took his name off the film entirely. When asked about this decision, Oldman has stated that since he spent most of the film under heavy prosthetics, he felt that playing Verger anonymously allowed him to experiment more with the role, and he certainly did that. Number 3, Kathleen Turner, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. 1988 animation live-action hybrid Who Framed Roger Rabbit featured an iconic vocal performance by the smoky-voiced actress known as Kathleen Turner, who of course played Jessica Rabbit. The role was small but pivotal in that the murder plot revolved around her patty-caking affair with Marvin Acme, the head of the Acme Corporation and owner of Toontown. When Marvin winds up dead, Jessica's jealous husband, Roger Rabbit, is suspected of murdering the mogul. Although Jessica Rabbit was one of the most memorable characters in the film, Turner was not actually credited for her performance. The actress has since stated that she played the part as a favour to director Robert Zemeckis, who had also directed her in Romancing the Stone. In the years since, there has been much speculation about whether Turner's claims that she did it just for fun or as a favour are completely accurate. While it's nice to think that she perhaps went uncredited to give the character an air of mystery, given the previous entries on this list, it's much more likely that Turner just didn't get the contract she desired. This suspicion is strengthened when considering that Turner did receive credit on subsequent performances as Jessica Rabbit. The moral here? Film contracts aren't bad, they're just drawn that way. Number 2, Robin Williams' The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Poor Terry Gilliam. I mean, is there a single film the celebrated director has ever made that wasn't plagued with production problems? For 1988's fairy tale adventure, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, there were many budget cuts, and production was even shut down to accommodate for reconfiguring. Originally, Sean Connery was supposed to play the role of the King of the Moon, who puts Baron Munchausen in jail because of his romantic past with his wife. However, the section of the film that took place on the moon had to be severely downsized because of budgetary restraints, dwindling what was supposed to be a cast of 2,000 extras down to just 2, the King and Queen. That's quite the change right there. Connery did not like this change of direction though, and so he bowed out of the film. In a scurry to recast the role, Gilliam asked his fellow Monty Python mate Michael Palin to take over the part, and Palin agreed. He's a good pal. But then, just days before Palin's scenes were set to start shooting, another one of the Pythons, Eric Idle, told Gilliam that his mate Robin Williams fancied playing the bonkers villain. Gilliam then had to phone up Palin to tell him he was now out of the role, jokingly saying to him, "Sorry, you're not worth as much money as Robin." Charming. Although Williams' entrance into the film came with a catch. His management didn't want him to be credited. In Gilliam's words, the deal was that we couldn't use his name because his agent said, "We don't want you pimping his ass for your film." And I thought, what are you talking about? But that was the attitude, so that's why Robin is not credited. The credit says the King of the Moon is Re di Tutto, which is Italian for King of Everybody. I think we can all agree though, if anyone deserves the title of King of Everybody, it's the late Robin Williams. The guy was a legend, we love you man. Number 1, Tom Cruise, Tropic Thunder. Writer-director Ben Stiller's 2008 action movie farce Tropic Thunder followed the troubled production of an Oscar-baiting film set during the Vietnam War. The comedy is a meta-commentary on the state of Hollywood and the lengths to which some will go to win some coveted gold statuettes. In the film, megastar Tom Cruise plays the wildly off-brand character of Les Grossman, the head of a Hollywood studio. Initially though, Cruz was actually slated to play Ben Stiller's character's agent, a role that would eventually be played by Matthew McConaughey, of course. The character of Les Grossman was actually Cruz's idea. He suggested to Stiller that they needed to have an over-the-top studio head portrayed in the film, and then offered to play that very character. So the two put their heads together and created the beast known as Les Grossman. The role required Cruz to wear so many prosthetics, including a bald cap, a wig, a fat suit, and even fat prosthetic hands, that it made the star barely recognizable. The notion to leave him uncredited was inspired by the idea that nobody would recognize him anyway. Audiences would struggle to figure out who was playing Grossman, and when they finally did, the revelation would be a big ol' surprise. And so, to keep the surprise under wraps, Cruz's name was left off all marketing for the film until after its initial release. Minds were then blown all over the place once folks eventually figured out who was actually under the ball cap. I still struggle to accept it to this day, to be honest.